Welcome to the Real Estate Profiting Podcast with Tobars, Dobbs.
They said that I couldn't do it, so I went and did it. W's only, you know I've been winning. Top of the world, the globe is spinning. If you know, you know I've been on a mission. Go. Okay, let's get it.
Welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Profiting Show with your host, Tobars, Dobbs. I have an amazing show in store for you guys today. I have my friend here and soon to be colleague, Mr. Rob Mullice. Let me just kind of, give you guys a quick primer on Rod. Rod Mullice is a prolific multifamily real estate developer here in the Metro Atlanta market. His company is dedicated to creating a more human approach to real estate development. His firm that he created, Windsor. Windsor is a real estate development firm focused on creating walkable, vibrant, livable urban communities around mass transit. So without further ado, Rob Mullice, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tobias. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
All right.
Just first off, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to, come on the Real Estate Profiting Show and, share your story, because obviously you're busy. In fact, you just told me, off camera, you literally just left a closing, before this meeting here. So I appreciate your time.
Well, listen, I appreciate you. I appreciate the education that you're giving people. I appreciate your dedication to being a good Morehouse man, a family man, and dedicated to your craft and making our communities better.
I appreciate it, man. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this conversation myself. I want to do something really interesting, just kind of to jump things off, right? To give people that are watching and listening a bit of a shock value, to help them understand why they need to stop the scroll and just take some time out of their schedule right now. And if they're remotely interested in real estate investing, why they should pay attention to this episode.
Okay.
So a question that I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
What would you say is the aggregate dollar amount of value that you created over your career and your real estate development activities on projects that you currently own, projects that you've developed and sold, and projects that you have in the pipeline? What would you say the aggregate dollar value is? So
we've done about 150 to, actually we're up to $200 million in transactions from a brokerage and to a principal position.
Okay.
And we probably are approaching about 20 million in value creation.
Hopefully that stopped the scroll and that will give people an idea of one, who you are.
Yeah.
And the fact that maybe they should take a little bit of time out of their schedule if they're interested in real estate development and investing, why they should maybe pay attention to this episode.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So now that we got that out the way.
Yeah.
So Rod, let's just kind of start at the beginning, because I like to understand the stories, right? And I know you're a big storyteller yourself.
Yeah.
I love following you and listening and watching the stories that you're sharing, whether it's stories about your family, your father, your ancestors, and that has guided a lot of what you're doing today.
Yeah.
Right. So I love starting with the story. So let's talk about your story. Where are you from?
I'm from a place midway in Liberty County. I grew up in a place called Freedman Grove, 30 miles south of Savannah.
Okay.
I'm a Geechee.
Okay.
We trace our lineage back, back to the 1820s. And very proud to be, in that line. Yeah. And folks have worked really hard, and they've given me an opportunity to share some of my talent.
It's that history that really caused you to name your firm what you named it, right?
Yeah. So my grandfather, 6 times removed, was Windsor Stevens.
Windsor Stevens.
And he had he got his freedom in 1865, but he was able to accumulate chattel. Well, when Sherman started marching to to the sea from Atlanta after he did what he did in Atlanta.
Okay.
They were living off the land. And there was this misconception that if you were a person of color, that you did not own any chattel. Well, Windsor did, because he was thrifty, he was industrious, and he was honest. And so he would do his work, complete his task, and then he would make money on the side with everybody else in the community. And so the Union Army confiscated his chattel.
Wow.
But the Freedmen Bureau, same folks who started Morehouse College in Augusta, and started Spelman and other places, sent folks down, Presbyterians and Unitarians and congregations, to teach folks who just got their freedom, formerly enslaved people, how to read and write. So Windsor in 1864, with his 9 kids at 50 years old, went to school with them to learn to read and write.
Wow.
And from that learning how to read and write, he made a claim to the Southern Commission and says, I want my stuff back.
Okay.
And he was successful with that claim, and he got some money and he bought some land.
That obviously inspired you, right? And probably continues to inspire you today, and thus you named your firm after him.
Well, and there were lessons, right? And the lessons were, one, get smart to get back.
Okay.
So he'd never be too proud, never be too old to learn.
Okay.
So, and he went to learn with his kids. 2, if you're right, you're right. And nobody can beat you until you give up. And so you just stick with it. If you know you're right, just stick with it. Don't do anything else, just stick with it and get what belongs to you. And 3, if I didn't know how to read and write, and if I didn't have any standing on the law and I was still willing to fight, I certainly, when I got some standing and read and write, I can certainly build it. Because my worst day was probably better than his best day.
I heard that, man. I heard that. Hey, let me shake your hand again right now. Look, y'all probably didn't realize y'all were going to get that much of a one history lesson and early education, right? Because we're going to pull some gems out of this guy right here. But he just laid out really a small lesson plan right there. How did you go from Liberty County to Atlanta, Georgia? What was that transition like?
Well, I grew up in the first integrated class in Liberty County, and me and a buddy of mine, we were being recruited to go to the University of Georgia and go here and go there. And we said, hey, we're gonna go someplace, like Morehouse College. And so we both applied. Only place we applied, we both got in. And started at Morehouse College, living off campus off of Westview. Something unfortunate happened. We had an incident, and they took our stuff. And so my mom and dad and my grandparents said, listen, man, come on back home and regroup. And so I did, and I started taking classes at Savannah State, and had this professor by the name of Haynes Walton, and he just taught me a whole bunch about how the world worked, how construction could impact our community in a major way. He said, hey, if you want to have an impact on our people and our community, you should go and work around the public works area and build things like roads or sewer systems or schools, and you can help our community grow economically. And before that, I was thinking about being a lawyer, but that just resonated with me. It just gave me purpose. And so I did that and got hired out of college, working for a construction company, small construction company. We built concession stands at schools, parking lots at Fort Stewart, curb and gutters on roads, sidewalks, stuff like that, baseball fields in Midville. And it just brought me joy. But it was just one side of it. And I wanted to get into the finance side. I had a banking and finance minor in college. I wanted to get into the finance side, and And I realized in the construction industry, the folks who control the money were the surety companies.
Okay.
And so I wanted to get in that business, and I got a job with a surety firm in Atlanta.
Huh.
And they sent me to CNA school and did that for 3 or 4 years. And my largest client was an engineering firm. And they said, hey, we just won this major contract here in Atlanta. We're going to redo the sewer system. And we need a HR manager, risk manager to buy insurance and help us hire all these people. They said, if you're lousy at hiring the people, at least you'll save us some money on the insurance.
Okay. Makes sense.
And so I did that and got me back in the built environment. And I learned the city working for that firm. So we were responsible for overhauling the sewer program, $4 billion job.
Gotcha.
From 1998 to 2009.
You realized when you're with the construction firm, you realized that it was the insurance companies that really controlled the capital for construction. And then you said, let me see if I can get into that industry. So did you make that decision because you already had a vision in your mind that you wanted to ultimately develop, but yet you wanted to follow the money first and understand how the money flows?
I had an epiphany of the life that I'm leading right now when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
I mean, the life I'm leading today, I saw this life when I was 9, but I didn't know what it was called. There weren't developers in my community.
Okay.
I always wanted to be, the guy who could wear some boots, but work with lawyers, work with bankers, work with contractors, work with the community to bring it all together. But I didn't know it. But I knew that there were some fundamentals that along the way that would make, real estate more valuable or less valuable. And so when I started working in the infrastructure area, I started putting together, and then I said, okay, this is how you select a site. This is why you select a piece of dirt. This is why you select a market. And so I had the vision, but I did not have the steps.
So basically, when you were with the insurance company, well, no, you went back into the engineering field.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then it was from there that you ultimately left to start your development career.
Well, no. So 2008 happened. Okay. In 2007, 2006, 2005, real estate was red hot, right?
Absolutely.
And, it was hard to get in at the level I wanted to get in. But because remember, I'm working on a $4 billion program. So I'm used to big construction projects, but they're horizontal, they're not vertical.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, well, I really want to get in on a big scale. And the big shops were not letting somebody in who was not actually in the club.
Got it.
And working at that level, work through their system. So when 2008 hit, I said, now's my shot. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna go work at a big commercial real estate services firm, and 2 or 3 were recruiting me. I chose Newmark, Knight Frank, and I learned the business from financial analysis from a real estate development side and a commercial real estate side. I learned market analysis at a granular level, and I learned, site selection, leases. I learned all of that at Newmark from 2009 to 2013. Okay. And I'm a firm believer in the 10,000 hour rule. Gotcha. And I think you got to be doing something 10,000 hours to become an expert. And it's better to do the 10,000 hours on somebody else's dime than on your dime to start.
I love it, man. It's an amazing story. It says a lot about you, and being very thoughtful and very pragmatic and very strategic about like how to accomplish the end goal of what you saw at 9 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but I made a lot of mistakes along the way. I mean, don't.
Well, right. Well,
yeah.
obviously, that's a part of it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we got to make the mistakes.
Yeah.
But it just speaks to the vision that you saw, that you just that vision never left your mind. You just continue to move towards it.
But that's Windsor Stevens, though, right?
Yeah.
It's just like if you're never going to fail until you stop. So I don't know if I'm a visionary or just hard-headed and won't stop until we see it through, right?
I love it. Wow. So you mentioned something. In fact, I want to say maybe it was the tenet number 2 you mentioned of Windsor Stevens. You talked about education, and continuing to learn, or maybe it was number 1. That he even went back to school, even with his children. And he was an adult, but he was going to school with his children to learn how to read and write.
Right.
I know just from past conversations, with you, that, you actually went back and continued to further your education around the thing that you wanted to see yourself doing, which is real estate development, and studied at Harvard.
Right.
To, even get a higher level, knowledge of real estate development, correct?
Yeah.
How was that experience?
It was transformative for me.
Okay.
It was a program at Harvard GSC. It was a year. We would go up 6 times and then do some virtual learning. Our class had 38 people in it, half from the United States, half from around the world, from Central America, Mexico, Africa, Asia, the Philippines, Hong Kong, and it taught me a couple of things.
Okay.
It taught me the world was bigger than Liberty County.
Gotcha.
And it taught me that, you can go anywhere in the world to practice your craft. And it also taught me that I could compete worldwide. And they had a student competition teams, and for the best design and the best financial plan for development. And our team won one of those, and it proved to me that if I just stick with it, we can compete.
Was that the pad on Harvard? Was that the project that won?
So the pad on Harvard was similar to the project, because the site we had to evaluate was next train stop, which is the T, they call it up in Boston, next to the airport, Logan Airport.
Okay.
So it had the same characteristics as the pad on Harvard, which was College Park and Hartsfield-Jackson. But we did a capstone project.
Okay.
And the business plan for the capstone project was the pad on Harvard. And we had the professors look at it, and they said it's a pretty good business plan. And then we took that business plan and we raised $16.8 million to build a 109 unit market rate, 4.5 story apartment building in College Park, which the most exciting thing for me about that project was that it was the first market rate deal done in College Park in 50 years.
Wow.
And it spurred so much redevelopment of restaurateurs on Main Street.
Yep.
And it brings a lot of joy to me when I ride down to College Park and see all those businesses down there.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. That was an amazing development. So the pad on Harvard, for those of you all that probably aren't familiar with it, Rod just kind of mentioned what it was. That wasn't just a case study, by the way. In his education program at Harvard, that was a real development that he developed and built. In fact, kind of give you a little trivia here. Do you remember when we met and how we met?
I was going to Impact Church, I believe. Is that correct?
Not exactly. Not exactly.
Well,
not exactly. Okay, so
but one of my church members introduced me to you because she was trying to put us together, right?
Well, so I think that happened after our initial meeting.
Okay.
Our initial meeting, and since you brought up the pad on Harvard, well, actually, I brought up the pad on Harvard. but that was actually where I met you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was where I met you. So this is how the story went. So, I was doing what most real estate entrepreneurs do. Ride around looking at real estate.
Yeah.
Right. I was riding around looking at real estate. I was in the College Park area, and I hadn't been over in the area in a while. And I was just like, where'd this building come from? And so I was like, man, this is a nice building. And I think what caught my eye and kind of took me off guard is because it was not characteristic of the buildings that you see in College Park. Okay. I mean, it was a great, modern apartment development. And so I was just shocked. I was like, wow. So this is nice. I was like, I wonder who the developer is in this. Like, this is interesting. I was like, well, I don't have a whole lot to do. I want to just check the building out. So I parked, literally came in through the glass doors and just kind of looking around, just kind of, checking out the property. And there was this guy sitting over here about his desk area. And I said, hey, how are you doing? And it was like, hey, how are you? I was like, great. I was like, this is a nice building. I was like, who's the developer? And he said, I am.
I was pulling myself at that.
Yeah, and that was you, obviously. And I was like, man, this is an amazing building. And then you were like, come into my office. Let's talk.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool. So we kind of went to your office, kind of chatted a little bit. In fact, I may be wrong, but I think if I recall you telling me you were getting your CO that day.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like, wow, it was really cool for a number of different reasons.
Yeah.
One, because it's very rare that you have a developer of your caliber that just like, okay, someone just walks in off the street and you invite them into your office to chat about your development. That's a little rare. And so that's one of the things I appreciate about you, Rod, that you are very approachable.
Thank you. I would say I don't take credit for it. I take it to my professor, Haynes Walton. God bless his soul. One of the things he said was, listen, we got more problems in our community than we have talent. And so one person can't solve all the problems. So you have to, share what you have so we can deal with some of the problems in our community.
I love it.
And so, and as you know, real estate development is a risky business. So, if you have the heart for the risk, I'll share what I know.
Awesome, man. I love it. I love it. For you guys that are listening and watching, I hope you just got something out of that really brief story that I shared on how Rod and I first met, right? Because, just by taking time and having a conversation and talking to someone, right? You see someone doing something that's interesting and inspiring to you, like get out of your car, stop, ask a question, shake their hand. Because, little did I know, I had no idea really at that time, because that was, when did you develop the
So we opened, we got the partial CO in December the 13th, 2016.
Okay.
And we got the full CO in February of 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was 2016. I didn't know in 2016, one, that I would have a podcast and that you would be sitting next to me and sharing your story. Nor did I know that, some seven odd years later, we'd be in early talks of doing a deal together.
Right.
So that just goes to show you that, like, talk to people, open your mouth. You see someone doing something that inspires you, have a conversation with them.
And that's the secret of development in real estate. It's a team sport.
Yeah.
And so, your teammates by longevity. And so you just get in there, build a relationship, and over time, you'll figure out something to work together on.
Yeah. It's obvious that you walk the walk, right? Because, I obviously I follow you on social, and I see you are heavily in the community, whether you're giving back, either speaking at high schools, or you are, working, with and around local government, and politicians, kind of, helping inform them of kind of how they should kind of steer growth and development, to like many different areas. I just see you in the community, doing what you're saying, building relationships.
Well, building relationships, but building community, right?
Building
because
community,
because at the end of the day, we want something that's socially sustainable and environmentally sustainable. And if you have something that's socially sustainable and environmentally sustainable, if you do your business plan right, it'll be economically sustainable.
Gotcha.
You can't control the environment. You can't control the social. So you have to go in there and get some grace from the community, or build the community in such a way that you protect yourself. But that protects the business plan. And people, I owe my community something.
Okay.
Even if you can't live in my building, I owe you something, because you've given me the right to practice my craft in your community.
Okay.
And to change the landscape. Okay. So you have to figure out how you impact everybody, even if they can't live in your building, in that community.
Interesting. It strikes me, kind of listening to you, because you're kind of listening to kind of your pathway into real estate, from, working with construction firm to working in the insurance outfit to working in the engineering outfit. I really don't get the sense of, like, how did you develop this mindset of social, and community impact and development, in that, like, where did that come from?
My mother was a social worker.
Okay.
My daddy is in the funeral home business, but he was in the National Guard for 20 plus years. But our family always was connected to the community. My daddy's brother was the president of the Coastal EMC. His other brother was the assistant superintendent of schools in Michigan. And it goes back to a period of we just work inside of the community.
Love it.
And one thing that I would know is that we're only as strong as the people in the community.
The next community member.
The next community member. And so, like our investors, our lawyers, our bankers, our folks who use our space as residents, we are dependent upon them.
I love it.
And so I learned that from my grandmother, learned that from my grandfather, folks bringing tomatoes, them giving people corn. We sustained and supported one another.
I love it. I love it, man. Well, let's talk about, you mentioned your business plan. Let's kind of talk about Windsor Stevens a little bit.
Yeah.
I know in conversation with you, and just kind of watching some of the things that you're doing, you are definitely focused on developing projects in and around mass transit communities.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as transit-oriented development.
Right.
Talk a little bit about that, and why you felt that was the market segment that you wanted to address.
Well, for me, I wanted to really be. I knew I couldn't compete with other developers in Buckhead and Midtown on the start. The land basis was high. The types of buildings, I couldn't build a 100,000 square foot building for an apartment. I would have to do 300,000 square feet.
Okay.
And so the capital requirements would not allow me to enter the market as a principal in Buckhead and Midtown.
Gotcha.
So I said, okay, I'm going to go into markets that's on, as they say, on the come up.
Gotcha.
where the development trend is working in its favor.
Okay.
And I said, well, how do I do that in a way that shows discipline and an investment thesis to my bankers and my investors? And in a lot of these areas in Atlanta, they were kind of sketchy when we started.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, what I will do is that I will double up on the safety, and I'll invest or buy land and develop next to institutional real estate. Real estate that has a life cycle of 100 years. And I also understand infrastructure. I also understand how to keep, travel costs low, because I came out of the engineering world.
Okay.
And I said, why don't I develop next to transit stops? They have their own police, so they can drive by my building when they're going to the station.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to keep the station up because it's federal dollars in it. And, the worst case scenario is that, I'll just be able to get my money back out. I won't make a major profit.
Okay.
Because somebody will always buy the building.
Gotcha.
Because it's next to a transit stop.
Gotcha.
And then it's walkable. And I love to walk. I work out my problems walking.
Okay.
So that's how we developed the thesis. Really, it was using my historical experience and trying to solve going to our communities and developing our communities and making our capital comfortable that it would be safe.
I love it.
Yeah.
Did you realize at the time how significant, focusing on transit-oriented development was literally nationwide? Like that was a trend and still is, that is still growing and still have not, in my opinion, reached its highest opportunity. Did you realize that at that time?
Yeah. So coming out of the infrastructure business, water and sewer, I was working for the engineering firm, and I realized the power of infrastructure on value creation. One of the folks that we next door to me stamped all of the sewer capacity for the city of Atlanta. His name was Guan Ellis. And most people don't realize back in 1999, 2000, there was a moratorium of sewer hookups in Buckhead. You could not build in Buckhead if you didn't prove that you had sewer capacity.
Okay.
And so One Alliance Center over here had all of the money to go. Tishman Spires was the developer, but they could not get a building permit because they didn't have sewer capacity. As soon as they got that sewer capacity or a strategy for the sewer capacity, they would build a 600,000 square foot building and unleash, $70, $80 million of value to the community. So I understood that. And I understand the value of a road.
Gotcha.
Plays into our intersection,
Okay.
plays into the value of real estate.
Yeah.
And then I said, you know what, the new cutting edge is transit.
Yeah. I love it. Interestingly enough, so one of my professors, you probably know him, rest in peace, Professor Alan Panado.
Mm-hmm.
One day in class, he shared, just kind of didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. It was just like one of those blurbs. He was like, if you're ever, looking for, some good real estate investments, look where there is road work going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, okay. This is kind of, noted. It just kind of went in my head. But basically what he was just talking about is what you're talking about, right? Infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
Like wherever you see infrastructure going on, more than likely property values are increasing in that area. And there's growth planned for the area.
There's growth planned for that area.
Yeah. I love it, man. I love it. So I know just in kind of conversations with you, seeing some of your projects, you work with, one of the oldest African-American owned construction development project management firms here in Atlanta. And you shaking your head, you probably know the name I'm talking about.
H.J. Russell. Mm-hmm.
H.J. Russell, what a phenomenal gentleman. What a phenomenal businessman. It's interesting when I was at Morehouse studying real estate, and I lived on Fair Street
Okay.
because I played football,
Uh-huh.
and the football dorm houses on that time were on Fair Street.
Yeah.
So I would just sit there on Fair Street, and if you drive straight up Fair Street back then, anyway, you would run right smack into the headquarters of the H.J. Russell.
504 Fair Street.
504 Fair Street. So you would run right into the H.J. Russell headquarters. And, here I am, young kid studying real estate with, dreams and visions of real estate development. And I just used to sit in my room and think about, like, man, if I could just be mentored by Mr. Russell, by the H.J. Russell Company, you know what I mean? I would have made it, right? Little did I know, and kind of speaking to your 9-year-old vision, right, that you have yourself. Fast forward a few years after I got out of college, there was a program in the governor's office, and it may still be in existence, I'm not sure, called the Governor's Mentor Protege Program.
Right.
And they teamed small companies up with larger companies in Georgia.
Right.
Hundreds, if not thousands of companies applied. I think they only selected a handful, maybe 10 or 20 or so.
Right.
I was one that they selected.
Right.
And guess who my mentor company they teamed me up with?
H.J. Russell.
The H.J. Russell Company.
Yeah.
So that just speaks to what happens when you have a vision.
You gotta have
right?
a vision, man.
Right. You may not know exactly how you're going to achieve it or accomplish it, but I had that vision. And, at that time, Mr. Russell had retired.
Mm-hmm.
But as you know, Mr. Russell, he never really truly retired.
He ran that company till the day he died.
Yeah, I mean, he's an entrepreneur. He's a construction guy. He's a real estate guy, and that's what he did, right? But so he wasn't kind of in the office on a day-to-day. Obviously, his sons, Michael and Jerome, ran the company. But I did get an opportunity to spend months kind of in that office. In fact, almost on a daily basis, I kind of felt like I literally almost had an office in there. Just kind of working with them, learning from them. Very important kind of point in my life. Yeah. Right. So it's interesting that you actually work with the H.J. Russell Company. What capacity do you work with the H.J. Russell Company?
Well, they're partners in my deals now.
Awesome.
So let's go back to when we started, right? So I told you I got in the business at Newmark in 2009.
Okay.
And as a broker, I was not that good in 2009, 2010. Okay. I had a little success, but I was not that good.
You probably did mine, but okay, I'll take that.
And it clicked for me in 2011, 2012, where I really got focused on a business plan on this is what I'm going to focus in on. And the key to focusing is knowing to say no to everything else, right?
Gotcha.
You can say yes to one thing, but no to everything else.
Gotcha.
And so at that point in time, I teamed up with a guy by the name of Mel Canetti out of New York, who also was at Newmark. And I said, the key to this development business is finance and having banking relationships and having, capital. And a buddy of mine owned a bank. His name was Chuck Lewis. He went to Morehouse also, went Georgia Bank, and I did some work for him.
Okay.
And he and the Russells had borrowed some money from him, and impeccable things. And I said, listen, there's a couple of deals that I know about, and maybe we can just talk about it. And so he set up a meeting with me and Jerome, and we talked about it, and the deals didn't go anywhere. But Jerome sent me some guys who were from New York, young guys who were trying to buy 520 apartments in Austell, Georgia. And they were in the deal. The young guys were raising the capital. The Russells were being the sponsors in the deal, so they were guaranteeing the debt. And they wanted me to make the acquisition. And, it was a tough deal, but we got it done.
Excellent.
I think we started in February, we closed in September. And it was like a $23 million deal at the time. And, And that was my first major big success.
Gotcha.
And everybody made money. I made money, but I had a closing dinner. And the closing dinner, since I was paying for it,
right.
Since I was paying for it, I said, Mr. Russell has to sit next to me,
Okay.
which he showed up,
Okay.
and that was a very gratifying experience. And so we had a pretty good year in 2013, and at that point in time, I knew I got into the business to be a developer. And I said to Jerome and Michael and Russell, I said, listen, I'm trying to be a developer. I got some cash because I just made a big deal. I'm at Harvard. I'm putting together this business plan. If I find a deal and I put the deal together, it covers all the pre-development costs, would you guys come in and co-guarantee the construction loan with me? And they're like, well, and I said, I'll give you 10% or 15% of the general partnership and a guarantee fee, but I'll put the deal together. And I was like, well, ain't no sweat off our backs. If you fail, we're not gonna lose nothing, right?
Right.
And that's how we became partners on the pad on Harvard. So
excellent.
So they co-guaranteed the loan with us, and we gave them 15% of the general partnership.
Would you just mind sharing a little bit about H.J. Russell and what he's done, what he means to the city of Atlanta, and the company that is now still being operated?
Yeah, but Mr. Russell started the business in its current form 75 years ago.
Okay.
Danita Russell Ross would tell you that they're like his father was in business, right? And so they're really working on the fourth and fifth generation in business.
Wow.
Not the second generation.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And so he was a plasterer, went to Tuskegee, and he saved up this money. He was very, very thrifty. He lived below his means to grow his business organically, and was involved in the community.
Mm-hmm.
He was involved in financing the civil rights efforts of Martin Luther King, along with some other businessmen in this area, Black businessmen in this area. He was involved in helping Maynard Jackson become the first Black mayor of Atlanta and stayed active, and was on the board of directors of Tuskegee, but also built a business from plastering up to $200 million, $300 million, $400 million when he passed it on to his sons and daughter. Mm-hmm. So he had construction, where he built large buildings as a joint venture partner, like the airport or the Georgia Pacific building. Mm-hmm. Built schools around Atlanta, around Georgia. Was a program manager, helping to revitalize the Atlanta Housing Authority. Now his sons have expanded the business to Boston and Texas. And they also were in the concessions business.
The banking business.
They own a sizable, the largest shareholder of Citizens Trust Bank. Mm-hmm. They are and prolific real estate developers. Yeah. Mr. Russell, I think, is the godfather of real estate developers. And he built about 7,000 units between the 60s to when he was working to the day he died until 2014. Yeah. He built units in Alpharetta, Americas, all over the state, but about 7,000 units. But then he kind of hired other developers. So Egbert Perry at Integral was a big part of growing the business from 20 million to 200 million and having him on the Black Enterprise top 5 Black businesses in the country. Egbert's built as a developer another 7,500 units. And Egbert is a partner of mine also.
Excellent.
And a guy by the name of Noel Khalil, Columbia Residential, used to be partners with Mr. Russell at H.J. Russell. And Noel's, God bless his soul, passed recently, but he built another about 5,000 or 6,000 units. And so if you put all of those folks together, you have a 20,000 unit portfolio. And that's kind of the impact that he had, that vision he had. So it's not only what he did, but he had the multiplier factor teaching his craft to other folks. And,
absolutely.
And I've learned it. I've learned it from Egbert and folks like that. So
that's amazing.
We owe it to our people to teach the craft to other people.
Yeah. And I know that you don't necessarily do tax credit projects.
Don't do it.
And I was just curious, how do you think about that, and what made you decide that, well, no, I'd rather develop market rate apartments?
So it's by necessity, right?
Okay.
The Russells were doing tax credit deals. Egbert's doing tax credit deals. Noel was doing tax credit deals. They're better at it than me. So I can't do a better mousetrap. Okay,
Gotcha.
The learning curve.
Gotcha.
So I came out of the market world, and I said, you know what? I will go to them and say, you back me on this, or you invest with me on this, and I'll do market rate, and I won't compete unless you into another market. And so it's trying to not compete, but extend and leverage their experience.
I love it. Again, it kind of goes back to that strategic thinking. Right? It's awesome, man. I love it. So, let's kind of shift gears real quick, Rod. Let's kind of talk about some of your projects.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, we already talked about the pad on Harvard. I think you sold that project.
I sold it round trip.
Excellent.
Built it for 16 million. Sold it for 21 million.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That was probably a good day.
It was
that was probably a good day. Day. Probably had a good dinner.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I know you have several projects in the pipeline right now at different stages of development, right?
Yeah.
Develop from pre-development to actual development. From the Fraser, Gordon. I knew them all, but
the Proctor, Temple Square 2, and Cascade. Yeah.
Awesome. Talk about why you chose those deals, what you saw that caused you to, say, hey, I'm going to develop this one here. It's a 44 unit deal. I'm going to develop this one over here. Maybe an upscale 53 unit community, How do you think about it like that?
So I think about it in two ways. I think about competition and risk, right? And so I believe fundamentally that I have a competitive advantage on tight sites with podiums.
And podiums, explain podiums for those that may not know what that means.
So you have a concrete poured in place high podium, and then you build on top of that.
Gotcha.
And so you can have retail on the bottom, the whole concept of walkability.
Okay.
And for a tight site, so you maximize the volume. The Proctor is a prime example. It's a block away from the West Side Beltline connector, 1 acre site. But we are going up 89 feet in the air.
And how many units is that?
That's about 142 units.
142 units.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I wanted to be the guy who says competing and eliminate my competition.
Got it.
And so I wanted an architectural firm and a contractor who can work on those types of deals. And so we that was a goal. We did the same thing with the Fraser up in Chamblee. It's a podium deal, 144 units.
Okay.
And then the other theme, investment theme, was more housing formations. So it's do townhouses for rent.
Okay.
And so I look for infill communities, sites, good schools where folks want to be and they can't buy, but they want a good product. And so that's how we're kind of making our investment decisions now.
Very, very disciplined, very methodical. I love it, very strategic. So all the deals, just so people can have a sense of, what you're doing currently, all the projects that you are working on in development right now, in total, how many units is it?
320 units?
320 units.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Are these units that are that you plan to hold long term, or you plan to hold for some horizon and have a capital event and sell, or what?
Yeah. So we're definitely merchant building the two apartment deals, the podium apartment deals, the Fraser and the Proctor. The business plan is to build them, lease them up, and sell them within the 3-year time horizon.
Okay.
The townhouses for rent, we are looking at holding those longer term, maybe a 5 to 10 year horizon on those.
Got it.
And then I guess I can announce now, my daddy has convinced me that I need to build some townhouses down in Midway on the family land, since you got the Hyundai plant coming down to Savannah. So I still got to figure out how to get that done, but that will be a much longer term hold.
I'm sure that is going to be a very special moment in time, going home and developing for the community that essentially raised you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, Rod, I'm not going to take a whole much more of your time, because obviously your time is valuable. You're developing 300 apartment units in one fell swoop. Your time is obviously valuable.
Not too valuable to talk to you and learn from you. So.
I certainly appreciate it. I just want to, so one last thing before I let you go. I came up with this framework and I call it the real estate profiting framework, right? Because, and you poke holes in this and let me know your opinion on it and your thoughts about it. But in my mind, regardless of the market that you're in or the segment in real estate that you're in, whether it's residential, attached, detached, multifamily, single family, industrial, hospitality, retail, and the list goes on, there's some commonalities. And I developed this framework called the Real Estate Property Framework, and it's really five parts of this framework work. And I'd like for you to comment on it. One is identify, right? The first thing that you have to do is you have to identify the asset, right? That ultimately you want to develop, invest in, whatever, right? The second thing you have to do is you have to analyze that asset, right? To make sure that it will achieve whatever type of investment goals that you have in mind, right? The third thing you have to do is you have to acquire and or control the asset, right? You have to either buy it or control it, right? The fourth thing in this framework is add value, right? You must figure out some way to add value to that asset, whatever type of asset it is, right? And the last phase is, it's quite simply, it's real estate profiting, right? You have to essentially, extract profit from that value that you've created. I've created that framework. What are your thoughts on it?
I think it's an excellent. Analyze. The analytic component is the key, right? I mean, you can't be all over the place. So identifying what your target is, and I tell people when you identify something, it requires two things. You got to say yes to the the item that you identify,
Okay.
and no to everything else.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that discipline of the identification is key, and then analyze it from a financial, from a market, from a physical, from a construction, from a design is essential, because nobody who is going to be your capital partner, they're going to ask you, and they want to know if you know every component of that asset. Right. So you got to analyze it. Right. I think that adding value to it can come in several factors, right? Mm-hmm. No matter what the cycle, no matter what the asset is, you can increase the rents, you could change the marketing plan, you could, do some value add. Mm-hmm. You could rezone it and do an out parcel, do some additions. So all of those tactics will add value to it. And then profiteering, it can be in the form of, I guess, 3 ways, and maybe I'm right or wrong on that. You can do distributions. You can recapitalize the deal, put more debt on it at favorable terms, or you can sell it, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's a great framework, man.
Yeah, great. So that makes me feel good.
Yeah,
that makes me feel good. Yeah, to get your blessing on that framework. Yeah. Now I can go live with that framework.
Go live with it, man. Because the key is the educational component. You're a Morehouse guy. You studied real estate, finance, you're seasoned in this industry. You're able to take care of your family. Now we got to have a massive impact on our communities.
I love it.
Okay, and until we start having a massive impact on our communities, our communities aren't going to be respected.
I love it.
And so you got to get as many people on your team to have that massive impact. So share that philosophy, and and make sure you have 3 relationships. Okay, make sure you have a mentor-mentee relationship. Make sure you have a mentor-mentee relationship. Okay. So you should be being mentored by somebody. You should be mentoring somebody.
Got it.
And then make sure you have good colleagues around you. And so you can be a well-rounded, and so you can listen to the advice you give, take some advice you give, and bounce some things off of people along the way. And that's, I believe, how you're going to have a massive impact on your community.
I love it. I think that's a perfect place to end. Talking about having a massive impact on the community. So, Rod, again, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule, come and speak to the real estate property community, myself obviously included, just to learn from your wisdom, experience, and success that you've achieved. So definitely appreciate it.
Thank you.
Definitely appreciate it. How can, if you like, how can people maybe follow what you're doing online or social or?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Mullice Rod Mullice, Rod M on LinkedIn. Okay. That's about where I do a lot of my technical posting.
Excellent. And I love your post, by the way.
Yeah,
love your post.
Yeah, and shoot me an email if you have questions. And Rod@windsorstevens.com.
Thanks a lot, Rod.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Did it? W's only, I've been winning. Go. Okay, let's get it.
Hey guys, look, if you made it this far, you are officially a real estate profiteer. So I hope you enjoyed that video. And look, if you haven't already, go ahead, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you'll be notified every time we drop some amazing real estate investing content. Last but not least, you can check this video out right here. It's one of our most popular videos on our channel. This one right here is a video that we'll know you love as well. Real estate property, let's go.